Well, a recent nationwide poll for Theos found that more than half of us believe there is life after death. And here in London, where we are this morning, a staggering 69% have faith in an afterlife. So many of you will be waiting with bated breath to hear the results of a worldwide study on the experience of patients who had been clinically dead. Our next big question, is there life after death? Now, Dr. Sampania, you are, these are clinical deaths that we're talking about. I mean, you're an intensive care specialist, and you're about to embark on this survey. So God willing, you'll be back in 2 years' time to tell us the results of it. But what is the persuasive evidence that there might be something going on after clinical death?
Well, I think it's important, first of all, to define what we mean by death. Most people think of death as just a moment, and that's a traditional description. You think you're either dead or you're alive. But because of the progress in science that we've had so far, we understand that actually after you die, in other words, after your heart stops beating, you stop breathing and your brain shuts down, you have a flat line in your brain, that actually the cells in your body are still potentially alive, they're still viable. And this goes on for a period of tens of minutes up to over an hour of time. So death is by definition reversible, which is why we in the intensive care or emergency rooms try to resuscitate people, bring them back to life. And what people experience during those first tens of minutes, maybe over an hour of time after they've died, gives us a unique understanding into what we will all experience when we've gone through death. So the big question is, if the cells in the body are still alive after you've died, then at what point do we lose our mind and consciousness, which is what we really are? We're not just cells, we are our thoughts.
Because if I may, there are examples of people's minds and consciousness going on and recording very remarkable things and then being resuscitated. Could you give us, tell us the sorts of things that you're talking about?
The point I was going to say is that what we have now found is that the evidence has come out from scientific studies in people who have been clinically dead, is that at least 10 to 20% of these people have some kind of memories from that period in which they had gone through death. Now, most of what they describe is very subjective. It's like a dreamlike state, a so-called near-death experience, and we cannot validate them. But a proportion of people will come back and tell us in remarkable detail that even though to us they were dead, they were able to see and hear everything that we were doing. And what they tell us seemed to be correct. So, for example, they will say that I was at the ceiling looking down at myself, and I saw Dr. Smith run into the room. He was frantic. He started pressing on my chest. He started swearing. As he ran across the bed, he hit a drip stand. The drip stand fell on the nurse's head, and then they started having an argument.
And they're looking down on it from...
That's how they just... Their perception, and I don't know if that's correct, is that they're able to see things from above. So the question for us is that real? Because if that's real, it's very, very significant. Now, one possibility, of course, is that these are just some kind of illusions, maybe a trick of the mind. And so what we have done within the scientific community is to set up the world's largest ever study, which is looking at more than 30 medical centers around the world, both here in the UK, but also in the States and other countries in Europe, with some of the leading authorities in resuscitation, neuroscience, emergency medicine, to try to understand what really does happen when people have died, because it has implications for us all. And the study we've set up is called the AWARE study, and we're recruiting over 1,500 patients who've clinically died and been brought back to life again. And the only part, and the study is very broad, and we look at various aspects of resuscitation, but the part that I think that's relevant to your show here is these claims that people have of being conscious when they've in fact died.
And there's something in it.
So what we do is we don't know if these are real. We place some kind of image that is only visible from the ceiling and not from the ground up. So the theory being that if in the operating room we have 500 people who all come back and amazingly tell us these incredible stories, if this was just a trick of the mind, then none of them should be able to see those pictures. So if no one sees the pictures, we can conclude that it must be some kind of illusion.
When will the results be out of this then?
The results of the study should be out in about 3 to 4 years' time.
And that's when you'll have to close your magazine, Wendy, when we find out.
I've heard about this sort of research before from Peter Fenwick, and you know, it sounds like a fascinating idea. But you know, it's you've been trying for quite a while, haven't you? At least the early stages of it, and I don't think anybody's actually come back with an accurate description yet. Is that right?
The difficulty that we have with this area, as you imagine, people have died. And so in order to make the study powerful enough to actually answer the question, it has to be big, which is why now we piloted it to see if the method would work, which was successful.
Frankly, I have to say, if I were kind of in a state of clinical death with doctors working on me and my consciousness somehow managed to escape my body, and I would be pretty much focused on what they were doing, because, you know, I don't think I'd be looking around for pictures. I'd be kind of, come on, get that working.
Well, you through a medium, don't you? Sharon, isn't it?
Yeah.
Good morning. You've spoken to people on the other side, including your baby daughter.
Yes. Yep. And that was through a medium that I'd never met before. It was on a one-to-one basis. She first of all brought through a relative that had passed over, so there was a short reading on that. And then she told me that the relative was holding a daughter that would be about then age 3, that had passed at 3 months. She said the name of the child, and then went on to other bits and pieces that I won't go into.
But definitively, that medium could not have known those details.
Absolutely could not have known. No.
And how, was that that must have been, if you believe it, and you do clearly, I mean, you can absolutely sincere in this. It must have been an extraordinarily powerful, emotional moment.
I can say, as and I think I speak for all parents that have lost a child, it doesn't matter how much love and support you get, and I have a great sense of faith. Counselling is wonderful, but nothing helps that healing period or helps you to move on in your life until you receive a message that that person you've never met before knows nothing about you.
And you spoke to a friend who we'll call John, who he could, through Litz, who's here. You're a medium, Litz.
Yes, I am.
And John it could only have been John.
It could only have been John, yeah. That wasn't a one-to-one, because you can bring up the argument that on a one-to-one there could be body language, or there could be, people say reading minds or something like that. But on this occasion, it was at a demonstration at Stepping Stones. There was an audience of people, and I was sat right at the back. I wasn't expecting a message.
I mean, Lloyds, clearly you believe in life after death because you're a Pentecostal minister. Who's speaking to Sharon here then?
Well, what's your suspicion? I wouldn't say it's her relatives, unfortunately.
Who is it then?
Well, let's put it this way. There are angels, there are demons, there are beings that we do not know.
She's been conned by...
I would say so.
By devils?
I would say so. I would say that the fact that she's in an open room, in an open environment, and something selected her, doesn't necessarily say it's her relative at all, because these beings will have knowledge of what's going on around, and they can select anyone, and they can work, and they will work through a host, and that's what the mediums will do.
Wicked beings.
Yes, I actually believe that what the gentleman is saying is quite possible, but I don't believe that it applies in all cases.
What happens when you get messages then? Do you feel yourself physically changing?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I become aware that my physical form changes, that I am impressed with perhaps passing conditions or immobility, which the person would have felt. Things that are not known to me in a physical condition. I see clairvoyantly images of people. I hear names. I see dates.
And do you feel yourself physically changing? If it's a man, you feel a beard or anything like that, you feel yourself being tall?
Yes, I can do. I physically feel that I have grown, that my form has expanded or indeed conversely shrunk.
How extraordinary. Would you feel anything now? Are you seeing anything now at the moment?
No, it's not something I want to do when I'm not in the environment and I'm not wanting to work. Fortunately, it's something that I can shut off.
Okay, gentleman over here, hand went up, then we'll come to our panel.
I'm an ordinary lay person. I'm not a skeptic whatsoever. I do honestly believe life after death. I don't think we're here for what you would call for 80 years and 10, and that's it. I think we have a
80 years and 10.
We have a path which we're going. But what I want to say is, I had an experience a few years ago, and my wife is well aware of this, is where my stepmother, my father and my stepfather came back to me, in which my stepmother said to me, "I'm sorry I was a bad stepmother to both you and your brother, and I'm sorry." And I said to her, "I forgive you." And that stays with me, and I'm hoping to be able to see her in a future life to say thank you for coming back and saying what you did do.
Well, do you think that Jan has been alive, Brian? Do you think there's anything in this?
I hope so. I really hope. A part of me really wishes for this.
Why?
Because I can't bear the thought that when you go into this hole or you're on a pyre, that's it.
What?
I just can't bear it.
But what's wrong with the thought that this is
Well, maybe, but I can't bear it. I can't bear the thought of that being the end.
Most people can't stand the idea. I mean, come on, the world is going to go on without me. Excuse me.
No, it's not. It is about this feeling that it can't be just all it's about. And it's not even a particularly religious feeling, though I am religious. So I hope you succeed in saying, I mean, I so want to meet a ghost. I would not be scared if I met a ghost, as long as it didn't bite into my neck or anything.
Do you believe in ghosts?
And I think it's the human thing that you want some continuation.
But what about giving everything, Yasmin, to the here and now? Giving everything to, nothing to kill or die for,
stop
all that.
living here and now, but I lost my mother 3 years ago, and the one thing that I really want, and this may sound mad, I just want her to come to me in a dream. I'm going to get all tearful, and she still hasn't. I feel, it's just that longing.
Well, would you be tempted with Litz, the medium?
No,
and
I would
Why not,
because I feel I have watched some medium. I'm not saying this is you, but there are so many charlatans out there cashing on this longing that I've expressed, and I feel very, very kind of upset on behalf of other people, which is not to say that your experience is not valid, but there's this you see them and you think you're just cashing in on this terrible vulnerability that we all feel. So I'm very skeptical on that.
Absolutely, I completely agree, and I just think there's such a massive responsibility that goes with this work. To me, it's about healing people, and it's about allowing closure, and it's about allowing people to continue with their life rather than trying and hoping and waiting and wanting to hear from their deceased friend or relative or loved one. It's about being able to move on.
Peter Tatchell.
Yeah, I accept that there are aspects of the mind that we do not yet understand. I think
what the doctor's talking about.
Mental science is at a very, very primitive stage.
Yes.
And I've had an out-of-body experience. I've also had a near-death experience where I saw the white light and my whole life flashed before me. But I don't think that's evidence of life after death. I think it's the evidence of some extraordinary mental processes taking place in very stressful, exceptional circumstances. And I think that's the way to look at it. I think just because people do have these unusual experiences, that is not a reason to conclude that there is life after death.
Christina, so many people do talk about it. As the doctor will tell you,
I would want to say that
the tunnel, the light at the end of the tunnel, people beckoning them.
I've heard experiences like that as well, but I would want to say that not only do I believe in life after death, I believe in life before life, and I think what we're experiencing now on planet Earth is just part of our entire experience, because I do believe we are spiritual beings as well as physical beings, and to me life is so mysterious. And so we're learning so much more about it. We know that our universe is still expanding, and we live on this tiny dot in a little solar system in a small galaxy. So I think life existing is a great adventure, and I have no idea. Like Yasmin, I hope we go on and on.
Is it for you wanting to encounter and speak to, touch, feel and love loved ones that you have lost before? Do you find that a big part of this?
I think when we leave this life, I think we also leave the dimensions of space and time. Don't ask me how that works. I cannot imagine it. No, Nikki. What I would want to say is yes, I will. I believe I will be in the closer presence of God immediately, and all those who.
My goodness me! This is wonderfully profound for a Sunday morning. Jamie, I mean, if you're a philosopher, if we were to meet in the afterlife, would you be surprised?
I'd be very surprised. There's a pretense that there's a lot more of wide-scale ignorance here, which we don't really have. I mean, so for example, we do understand quite a lot about how the mind works. And for example, we understand vision. We know how vision works. Vision is light waves hit your eyes, and then there are certain processes, and that's how you see things. Now, the idea that we can see when detached from our eyes, I mean, I could pluck your eyes out now, and I'm sure you wouldn't see, well, not for long.
Well, they tried it in the rugby last week, didn't they?
But we're not in a state of ignorance of the kind that people are here suggesting. And what's going on roughly is that people are a bit confused by some experiences they have. They take their personal experiences to be of frightful importance, and they ask us to revise our entire worldview, which is based on centuries of built-up evidence about how the world works, and posit fantastical entities. I mean, it's
people looking down on their operations.
I think
so. Hang on, Wendy, Sam.
I'm so sorry. Can I just... A couple of quick points to say. First of all, actually, we know very little about how the mind comes to be, as you know. We don't know how brain processes lead to your thoughts. So if you think about it, at the end of the 19th century, physicists honestly believed that they had discovered everything that they knew about physics at that time. until they discovered the atom, and they realized that Newtonian physics did not answer the questions of the subatomic world, the really, really small world below atoms.
So we're still in the foothills.
So today, we don't know how thoughts come to be.
Nobody is saying that we know everything about the brain. What we're questioning is the claim that near-death experiences are evidence of life after death. There are two different things. You can have a near-death experience and still not have it be evidence of life after death, and I don't think there's any very good way of establishing for sure.
If you see the way I described this, was very specific, that people have died. We have a lot of evidence, anyone's welcome to search in the medical literature, that tells us there is a flatline state in the brain. There is no brain activity, there's no blood flow into the brain.
And yet something's going on.
If there's one, hold on a second, I'm so sorry, let me just finish my point if I may, just make my point. So the point is, people claim, I don't say they're right or wrong, people claim, and as doctors we have to listen to our patients, they claim they can see us, and they describe incredible details. It's possible, it's an illusion, and I agree with that.
Well, Jesse, you had this
situation. But we need to test it, and that's what the experiment's about.
Jesse, you had this situation, didn't you?
Yeah, what happens, I was so-called deaf for about seven minutes. What happens is like we're a spirit, and our spirit is like infinite. And it works the other way around. We live infinity, or the perception of infinity, and we encapsulate this physical body.
What did you see?
Okay, I was lying down on the floor, and I thought I was like asleep, but I was not asleep, and I heard this beautiful music like out of this world. And I tried to get up, but then my spirit left the body, and I can see all around me. And the best way to describe it is like now I'm fully awake, and this life is a dream, and I'm dreaming up my body. My physical body, actually I encapsulate my physical body. And inside there's like, it's a gate. Now the colors was like beautiful, very intense. And I tried, and every soul was in bliss.
Every soul was in bliss?
Yeah, I never experienced that bliss on this, you know.
A feeling of complete, Litz is nodding here with a sort of, you know what he's talking about?
Yeah, I do, because, I'm sorry to interject, Jesse, I do, because when I've had communication from people that have committed suicide or who have died in tragic accidents, people who have had extremely long and painful illnesses,
bliss.
They are just so at peace.
So I only brought her in because she was backing you up. Carry on. And you saw someone, didn't you?
Yeah, that's right. So I was very grateful, actually. I left this life of limitation because I always knew I was something greater than it's like I'm acting this role.
So you see the world differently now?
The whole perception changed, and I follow the spiritual path myself now. So I'm ready to go through the door, and I heard footsteps, and this being comes outside the door.
Yeah.
And it was like, okay, it was big, but I couldn't see his eyes, because his eyes was like full of love and compassion, and I knew him like before I was incarnated in this life. And I remember I was alive before I came into being in this life.
Listen, this is an amazing story. This is a vindication of everything you believe, isn't it, Lloyd?
Well,
I take that as a no.
No.
No? Why?
Well, the Bible does talk about the rich man and the poor man, and the experience of the rich man being in a place where he was extremely uncomfortable and did not like, and wanted to send the poor man back to earth to go and tell his brothers, make sure you do everything right, that you do not come to this place.
Yeah.
And the reply came back, if he did go back, nobody would believe him anyway. It was that sort of point in the Bible. So people coming back, I'm always, not to say skeptical, but I'm always wondering, what does it do to them to propel them forward, and how does it move them?
Yeah, we have to leave it there. This one, I feel we have to leave it there, but I feel this one is very much to be concluded at a later date, I think. But thank you all very much. Thank you for that. Now, whether you're here or in the great beyond, you can send us your thoughts on that debate by logging on to bbc.co.uk, the big questions.